Ladies and gentlemen, it is a miracle. I finally have a positive review for the 2019 IDW Transformers series. It took us 18 issues before I finally had something good to say. Well, that's not exactly true. I've had good stuff to say about every issue so far, but it usually pales in comparison to how much I hate this series. But today we have the first issue that I would actually say is good. But we have to get through some of the bad first. So, Transformers number 17. I have a few notes here that for the most part I've already discussed before. Everyone talks the same. Not only does everyone talk the same, everyone talks weird and bland. I decided to take some notes this time around of specific lines that I have in mind when I say that they're bland lines. For example, one character says the line, "I do know," instead of "I know," which in the context of the line, it would be much easier to just say "I know." She also says, "Don't be waiting for me," in the context where "don't wait for me" might make a little bit of sense. Now you might be saying, well, maybe that's a character trying to talk in an archaic fashion to someone who they're unfamiliar with, but it's someone who I looked up the writer to see if maybe English was a second language, because a lot of the writing here would make sense dialogue-wise if English was a second language and he was like still getting used to it. It wouldn't be acceptable for a professional piece of writing in the English language, but it would at least be an explanation. I looked it up and the writer's from Scotland. So, make of that what you will. I follow accounts that highlight some stuff being said on the Scottish side of Twitter, and, I'm not sure if that's English. I wrote down in my notes that there's a lot of useless space being used. For example, there's just a full panel, devoted to Cyclonus turning around. Plots that I don't know what's happening anymore, because when you have 50 plots moving at a snail's pace, you lose track of what's going on. I feel like I've made this point before. It was nice to see Blaster in a cool design, especially when I hated the design half a decade or something. The part with Gears was also very funny visually speaking, but the dialogue during that scene was just trash. I've noticed the dialogue also tends to omit subjects. Like instead of saying, "I saw this," the character will say, "saw this." And every character will talk that way. They'll also get rid of like the word "are" sometimes, and it's just really distracting how everyone talks the same. I will say that the art was especially good this issue, especially for the parts involving Lightbright. The Titan fight was pretty cool. But beyond things I liked, I also noted that more stuff from the old IDW universe pop up here, like Gizmo, who was in Spotlight Hot Rod, and more dialogue revolving around the Titans that seems very similar to the Titans from the old IDW universe. And thinking about the universes starting with them right out the gate, I realized that the old IDW universe had to work to earn their past, while this series tends to be living in the past and not really dealing with the present that much. For example, the Knights of Cybertron are referenced, while it takes a while for the Knights of Cybertron to pop up in the old IDW universe. The old IDW universe started with the foundation of Infiltration, which was just a modern interpretation of Generation 1, with recognizable characters and a concise plot. That's something the current IDW universe fails at. So let's get to number 18, the comic that I think is actually good. That's not to say it's perfect, but I do think it's an actually good issue. Now it starts off with some text and some extra stuff, and I skipped that because this series just hasn't earned me reading extra text for it. It hasn't set up the world enough to make me care about the backstory of this world. Right off the bat, we see Lug from IDW, as well as Grapple in his sort of More Than Meets the Eye design. So again, more droppings of that this is really tied to the original IDW universe in some way, shape, or form. The massive tether falling across Cybertron and the physics that they talk about when it comes to this thing that was connected to the moon just falling and how it's wrapping around the planet as the planet spins on its axis was a very interesting thing I've never seen done before. Watching the massive tether fall really gives you the impact. This issue really helps with the impact that this is a major event. Like, this changes things. This is their 9/11. And it's the first time that they've really like hyped up an event on Cybertron that I really feel like will actually have major repercussions. We also see a little bit of Red Alert and Inferno working together, and it's nice to see those two characters working together. It reminds me that this is a Transformers book, which I didn't realize, I kind of forgot as time went on. We see a ship called the Exodus, which is interesting because in Transformers lore, the Exodus is usually a major ship, first introduced as the Minicon escape ship in Armada. RC entering the ramp reminded me a lot of her entering the ship in Transformers the movie, just at the last time. The last possible second to get on the ship. A lot of stuff reminded me that I am in fact reading a Transformers book in number 18, which is a very good thing. I will say one thing that I did not like is how RC in this continuity is also a very skilled elite assassin. I feel that the first IDW universe did this well, and it was fresh in the first IDW universe, but I think we need to move on because we've explored that idea to the brim with the previous IDW universe. And I was getting like a different vibe from RC up until they referenced the fact that she is like a hardcore assassin. And then once I look at it through the vision of her being a hardcore assassin, I'm like, oh, we're just retreading the old universe except without the depth. Alright. I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's on my notes that I liked the change of perspective to be more focused. Like, and I'm not saying that every issue needs to be like that, but it was a nice change of pace compared to the previous issues where it's hard to tell what's going on, to be frank. Issue number, I can't tell you what happened for the other issues. And it's interesting because I made a video reviewing the cover of this issue and how it was a bad marketing choice for a cover. But issue number 18 has become my favorite my favorite issue of this series so far. That being said, I fully expect future issues to go back to the norm of being bad. I think the writer was probably writing number 18 as a sort of throwaway, like let's focus on these characters for a little bit before I return to the main story that is incomprehensible. But thank you guys so much for watching as I go on my review of each IDW Transformers issue. I plan on getting to Galaxies eventually, because I do have stuff to say about the first arc in Galaxies. I also plan on reviewing the Valentine's Day special, along with the current G.I. Joe series and the next issue of Rom Dire Wraiths. But that's enough for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to this channel if you have not yet for more nerdy content. Follow me on social media for updates. Consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel continue, and have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Huge thanks to our patrons, including this month's $10 plus patron Josh Adkins. Check out the description for more patrons and more info about how you can receive a shout out here.